newly elected Councilman Kenahan and Councilman Tucker, I think is that correct? Are both here. I got to meet Councilman Tucker the other night, and so I want to thank them. I hope they're here to support this. If not, we'll win them over soon enough. I'd like to call the president of the Arctic Village Association up. I'd like to hear his thoughts on these issues, either him or his partner. But it's important to hear their voice as well, and to hear what they need for us to do for them.
Hi, I'm Barbara Slezak, and I'm the coordinator for the Arctic Village Association. And I'm very familiar with problems we're discussing, the people that are homeless. I'm looking at it from a business point of view because our organization is comprised of business owners. And so I'm familiar in that respect. I think it's a wonderful idea that something is going to be done to help the problem here in the Valley and in West Warwick. That I am totally in agreement with, and how we go about doing it. That's so important. We have here in West Warwick, in this last year, have been putting together a redevelopment plan for the business district, and there's a lot of time and effort and business owners participating, and the town hired a consulting firm from Massachusetts that participated and helped us put this plan together, which we hope to execute. I'm also concerned about the businesses and how it will affect the business community, because we've worked really hard, we've been working really hard to establish more businesses, attract more businesses. So it's both sides of it. We want to be able to help and correct the problem, and on the other hand, we want to make sure that we protect the business community. Because without the business community, the resolution isn't going to happen. So that's pretty much where we're coming from. I'll be very interested to see, or the Arctic Village Association will be very interested to see how this is going to come about, what the stages and steps are going to be, what are they saying. So we'll definitely be a part of it. And thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
I'd like to take a few moments and basically, we call this a forum. So in holding true to what a forum is, I'm going to open it up for questions, and if I can't answer it, we'll do our best to look amongst you for the answers. So questions? Mr. Lewis.
Have they got a place in sight for me?
There are many places we've looked at. We need to get the support. In my vision, in Charlie's vision, the vision of the Arctic Mission, we needed a shelter yesterday. Now, to let you know, a shelter is just a small Band-Aid on the problem. It's only a small percentage of the solution. Karen Jeffries, I think, is standard on that. We need to use the resources available to get people in permanent living situations, whether it be mental health counseling, to get them going in that direction, drug and alcohol treatment, detox, veterans that don't have their veterans benefits, getting them hooked up with the right people, getting people dialed in with Riverwood, Crossroads, West Bay Community Action, and other programs that are out there that will help provide long-term housing or a solution to going in the direction of long-term housing. So, have we looked at buildings? I've looked at a few. Have we asked about some buildings? We've asked about some buildings. But we're moving forward with it, but we gotta make it work for everybody. I mean, I would love it to be in the middle of Arctic Village. It's not gonna happen. It doesn't work that way for everybody. But when we do find a place, and I hope it's in the next few weeks, before Christmas, because I hate to see people spending Christmas out on the street.
Yeah, it's cold.
And so that, I hope, answers your question.
Hi, as part of the Rhode Island Homeless Advocacy Project, first of all, we'd like to invite everybody. We meet on Fridays at 10 o'clock at Matheson Street downtown. Everybody's welcome to come. We'd like to help you out. We'd like to help train outreach workers here. My mom grew up in West Warwick. As Mike's dad was. My mom grew up, so I have a special place there. Now, let's face it, we know we also, in West Warwick, there's problems with gangs. Now, the councilman, where are you, councilman? I'll make a deal with you. You all support this? I've worked with gangs. I'll be more than happy to help you with your gang situation. All right, so think about that. Right? Thank you.
This gentleman right here. Yes, there is. Can you look for that gentleman? Did you want to come up and say a few words? No. He's just here, basically, interested in gathering information. But we'll continue. We will be working with the Housing Authority. I met with some people today at the Housing Authority. So, try to help make that process a little easier. Next. This gentleman right here.
As far as the housing, there isn't anything being done. I haven't seen it lately.
There's a lot of things being done.
I'll tell you what, may I say something?
Absolutely. Let your voice be heard.
Thank you. I get a military disability check. I would give half of it to wherever for some support.
I'll tell you what, at the end of this meeting, I'm going to give you my business card. You call me tomorrow, and I'll start getting you in the road to housing.
No,
Call me tomorrow, and I'll help you navigate the housing system, and I'll help work towards getting you in permanent housing.
I just want to let this be known, there's people out there, and I know them, and I lived in them, and they're still there.
If you want help, call my office, and I will give you help.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make every resource
Thank you.
available
Thank you.
that I have
Thank
to you. Next. Gentleman back here.
What's the difference between a halfway house and a homeless shelter?
Okay. A homeless shelter
Or is
is
that
just,
significant at all?
it is significant. It's a real big difference. And a halfway house is a little farther up the pecking order. A shelter is the first step away from homelessness. You're still homeless when you live in a shelter. Now, depending on the type of halfway house you go to, there's drug and alcohol treatment halfway houses. There's criminal, the other side of jail, when you leave jail, there are halfway houses, federal halfway houses. Those are, gradually get people back, re-enter society. But for alcohol and drug treatment, those halfway houses are basically to give people a structured environment until they can live on their own, where they have support for their addiction problems. Anthony.
A lot of the homeless people walk the streets the other day, from the top stop, they don't want to hang it nowhere. They told us get lost, you go into the woods, there's a hideout, live, cops find us, they throw us down those areas, where are we supposed to go?
When you have problems and issues with that, you have my card, Anthony.
Yes,
And I'll give you my cell phone number. You call me, and I'll find out what's going on. The new homeless bill of rights says that's not supposed to happen. So let's find out why it's happening. I can't speak for the police or against the police because I'm not there visualizing and hearing the situation. So if you're absolutely doing nothing wrong, they shouldn't be bothering you. If they think you're doing something wrong, then they're bothering you. So we have to find out why before we can give you an answer to that. Anyone else? Mr. Lewis?
Okay, once again, is it Harrington Hall? Which I've been there. I've been at Johnny Ray, I've been at Forest Road, I've been in shelter, I've been shelter everywhere around there. Transportation. I believe in Harrington Hall. Rain, sleet, snow, shine, whatever. 6 o'clock in the morning, you go out. 90% of us go out in 75 of us. And now the whole life there, are cleaned up. You know, wait, what?
There's a lot of resources available during the day. There's Crossroads that has the day room. I know it's not the nicest place in the world, but it is off the street. And you can meet with a counselor there. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there's counselors and advocates available at Harrington Hall also that can provide resources for you when you leave there, so you've got a plan, so you've got a place to go to, you can come back that night. I know at the Emmanuel House we provided resources. One of our biggest resources is the Recovery Center. For those of you that are sick and tired of being sick and tired, and those of you that know what I'm talking about, know what I'm talking about. But the Anchor Recovery Center is a place. There's going to be an Anchor Recovery Center opening up here in Kent County as part of the YMCA, from what I understand. That gives you a place to go and get support, find programs that are available to you, job training programs, getting resumes done, clothing outlet, ways to make changes in your life. We can't make all the changes for the homeless constituents. You've got to be willing to take the steps for yourself as well. We'll give you the resources. We'll provide you with the path. But you've got to walk the path. You've got to pick up the phone and make the phone call. You've got to show up for the appointments. If you don't do that, the cycle doesn't break. Okay? Once again.
I think most of us sitting here tonight have read all our lives about abandoned federal property. You know? And I wonder if it's worth your while, but the time allotted.
I've wondered that myself many times, and the answer I get is the system is what the system is.
How much red tape is involved?
Unfortunately, it's not that easy. Once we find a property that's properly zoned, then we got to get fire department approval for so many people. We've got to get health department approval. So these facilities have to be able to, with minimal cost, be able to be switched over and adapted to use as a shelter. So just any old building just doesn't work. So, Ms. Brody.
So I just wanted just to make a couple points for talking about the building. So the first point is the programs during the day. We're actually, through that plan to end homelessness in the state of Rhode Island, are working with the House of Hope to change Harrington Hall so we don't have one big room with 100 people, you know, and no services. You're in at 5:30 at night, you're out at 6 in the morning, and it doesn't do any good. It just keeps people cycling. And the staff there that are running it now are incredible. So when I say it doesn't do any good, it's not because of the staff, it's the model. And, you know, back in the 80s when homelessness first started to come up, all we knew was let's open shelters. But now we know better. There are best practices that happen across the country. So really, we're looking to create an assessment center, and I would suggest that you consider calling this an assessment center where people can come in, get assessed for health issues, for behavioral health issues, for some employment skills, because the Department of Labor and Training is on board. They're working with us. We have a governor's interagency council that has every state department on board. They, you know, voted to approve this plan, and we want to move forward. So to actually have a place where people can stay, get the services they need, get the training they need, get into housing. And when you talk about the shelter, because we all definitely agree that something needs to be done with the people who are living on the streets in West Warwick. So opening up a temporary place for them to stay until we can get housing in line. But I would suggest that you look for a property that could eventually be turned into permanent supportive housing. An example is one in Warwick on Fair Street, which is where I grew up, that they just opened up. They bought this former assisted living building, and they used it as a shelter for a good 2 years until we were able to cobble together all of the money that it takes to rehab and get the rental subsidies to make the building appropriate. So everyone had their own unit. They had a one-bedroom unit with a bathroom, just like anybody else in the community would live in. We got the rental subsidies, so you don't pay any more than 30% of your income for rent. And we eventually, after we got the funding together, we turned that building into permanent supportive housing. So instead of just buying a building that only can be used for a shelter, look for a building that can eventually be turned into supportive housing. And I went with the executive director of the Housing Authority and one of their board members. They came to a forum in Connecticut a few weeks back, and we talked about, looking at potentially looking at the waiting lists and the different regulations that are put in place right now to make it easier for people who are experiencing homelessness to go into housing. We have nonprofit developers that would love to come into West Warwick and build housing. And for the business community, we actually have studies from across the country that show that when you build permanent supportive housing in neighborhoods, the property values go up, because you can drive across the state of Rhode Island and you can pick out the affordable housing and supportive housing units because they're the best ones in the neighborhood. So I can bring you the studies if you want to see it, but it will make your community feel safer. It will make your community actually, grow. You'll have a better sense of community because all your members will be taken care of, not just, the wealthy members. They say a society should be judged by how we, treat our most vulnerable people. So really, I'm happy to work with you to, kind of have a plan that falls in line with the state's plan. I think that you'll all be happy. Sorry.
Are you out?
So I work for the Corporation for Supportive Housing, and I'm working out of the governor's office right now to get this plan moving and to actually have services that would go with the housing to help people. So I don't develop it, I don't operate it, I don't provide the services, but I work with the people who do.
But they did a BCI on me, and I'm a convicted felon.
Yep.
I got denied.
Yep. And we're working with that, but just so you know, whenever you get denied, go talk to, your social worker. You can appeal it. Anytime you're denied for housing, you can appeal it, and if you can show that you're mitigating the circumstances for your criminal history, you can actually work on the appeal. So that's what we're working with housing authorities across the state to look at those administration policies, because, if you go back 10 years on me, you might find something too. So, can we make things a little bit easier and reduce the barriers?
Thank you.
I believe through the Rhode Island Coalition for the Homeless, there's a legal aid that does advocacy work for those appeals and stuff.
Yeah, we have legal clinics, they're free.
No cost to it.
They can tell you where they are, yeah.
There's resources available to help you through that appeal process as well. This gentleman right here.
Yeah, I have a question for you. You work with the governor's office, do you? I've had an idea for a while about forming co-ops for these houses that are going to foreclosure. I've had a lot of friends that have been displaced. In fact, I was displaced a few months back because somebody bought the house we lived in.
Yeah.
But if we could get form co-ops to buy these buildings and set up, there was an anchor co-op. I don't know if it's still around. I was in a place on Massey Ave in Providence when it opened up, and it would solve a lot of the people being displaced from the apartments who are there already, because a lot of the landlords don't pay their mortgage. People are paying their rent, and all of a sudden the bank comes and says you have to leave.
Yeah, and I will say that, I'll bring that idea back, and I'll just clarify, work with the governor's office, not for the governor's office, which
Well,
be
yeah.
able to say things that other states
Yeah.
can't say.
Right.
So, would just say that we have this great land bank program at Rhode Island Housing, and I think you all know the affordable housing bond passed. And so that will bring more money. And I mean, the sad part of all of this is that it all comes down to money and funding and what the state is looking at. We're one of the only states in the nation that does not put money into housing. So we have these housing bonds that pass, but we need like a direct line item in the budget. We don't have our own state rental assistance program. We now have the housing bond, which is great. We'll have that for 2 years. But we need to continually invest in housing because housing actually increases employment. Over the last housing bond that we had, 50% of the permits were taken out across the state to build the affordable housing project. So without having that money, we would have so much more unemployment. We'd have less, builders, work opportunities. So we will work on that. We just need.
I was thinking more like a nonprofit co-op.
Yeah.
To form nonprofits to acquire these houses that have been foreclosed.
Yeah, we have that, and it's funny because in order to get the federal subsidies that we need to pay for rent, housing has to hit a certain quality standard. So some of the foreclosed properties, they're in great locations, but they need a ton of work. So it's getting that money together to bring the buildings up to code and then to actually provide the subsidy. But, we should talk more. I'll give you my card.
Okay. Thank you.
Just really quickly, is there any members of the ABA that have any questions for myself, from Charlie, or for any of the other people that are here? Is there any issues we can address for you here publicly?
The only thing I heard was you're not looking to facilitate an audit.
Well, we're looking for a place where we can put a permanent facility. I've looked at buildings in audit for temporary facilities. We need to find some place that's available quickly, not permanently. So there's short-term solutions and then there's long-term solutions. I'm willing to look anywhere where there's a property available that makes it work for the village association, that makes it work for the citizens of Pawtuxet Valley, that makes it work for the homeless people for access. So it's got to work for everybody. Why did I look in Otic? Because my office is in Otic, there's a lot of homeless people in Otic, and there's a bus route in Otic. So that's why I've looked here. I'm willing to look elsewhere, but I need guidance and direction to do that. I am more than happy to, direct the coalition towards not putting it in front of your business. I understand your concerns with it, and I hope we've been able to address some of those concerns tonight at what our vision is and what our plan is. Our plan is not to create a problem, but to be part of the solution. And the solution could have worked for everyone. It really does. Because if you're not happy with it, you're going to hassle. And if you hassle me, then I got to hassle them. If I hassle them, then they're going to hassle you. It's never going to get better.
I'm a big hassle.
So let's just fix it. Let's work on it. Let's work together. That's what this is all about, working together. Bringing everybody together for a common cause. And it will work for all of us.
A resolution.
Anybody from the town council have any questions? I know, because I'm going to have to go before you eventually. So let's get started now.
We're going to talk.
Good. No questions from any town council, newly elected or already elected?
I would like to say one thing. I'd like it if Chief Barrett, the fire chief, would explain something that's going on in Providence that you might be aware of, that's probably something that we're just talking about. So, I don't know what it's,
I don't think the chief is prepared.
I spoke to Ed earlier. After listening to this, it's different. It's a different situation. This is when we pick up people, rescues. Correct.
And I think
That does happen, but
my experience with the Emmanuel House in Providence is I had a working relationship with the police department as well as with the fire department, because there's issues that have to be addressed. There's problems that occur. There's going to be a need for emergency services. And we have to have a common goal. I can't abuse those municipalities in any way, and I need to cooperate with them, and I can't put them in harm's way either, and I can't increase what they're already doing because the taxes will go up. So I have to work with that. So I have to train people. People have to be trained on when someone's supposed to be called, when either legal or emergency services need to be called, at what step of an escalating problem or health issue do we bring in the fire department or the police department. Cooperation, it has to work for everybody.
When you are successful in at least getting a good shelter, at least going, will there be rules in that shelter? If those rules are not followed, they will not be allowed to stay in that shelter? And then what happens to that person again? Is that like that?
Great question, and that was one of the challenges I had learning that and navigating that at the Emmanuel House. And I think Mike and the people that do the outreach work will tell you there are a lot of rules. There's no alcohol or drug abuse on premises. There are no weapons allowed on premises. There's no fighting allowed, no gambling allowed. You come to sleep, you come to be safe, you come to warm up, you come maybe to get a cup of coffee and a bowl of soup if those services are offered, if those facilities are available. Each person that comes in, and they're brand new to the shelter, we sit with them, we do an intake. In that intake, we go over the rules, we go over any personal issues that they have, any legal problems that they have. There's a whole bunch of sheets with questions on them. And if you become part of the coalition, you'll get an opportunity to see what that is. You'll get an opportunity to add things or detract things from that. But I have the ones that are used on Mathewson Street. I have them in my computer. I have the ones that we used at the Emmanuel House in my computer. I have the ones that we used at St. Paul's. And what I did was took the strictest list and adapted that to the Emmanuel House. There may be flexibility in that, there may not. We give people opportunities to change their behaviors. If they don't take those opportunities to change their behaviors, they're asked to leave for the night. When they're asked to leave, I'm responsible for making sure they have somewhere to go. So I have to call one of the other shelters in the state and make sure that that person knows they can go there, has a way to get there, and then make that happen. So no, they're not back out on the street unless they so choose to be. And if they choose not to go to another shelter, they have to sign a waiver. But we strongly suggest that they do what we've done for them. If they come back in and there's an issue in the second time, they're asked to stay away for a week. And we ask another shelter to take them on for that week. And we make that opportunity. 3 times and you're out, just like baseball. And then you got to continue to find another shelter. And we'll advocate for you, but if you're out on the streets at 3 in the morning causing problems, you're going to deal with law enforcement.
Do you have any statistics when shelters are, established in a community, how it impacts our police and fire? Is it a positive impact because the shelter is helping and getting them off the street? No.
I thought somebody might ask that. There's an organization on the federal level called the National Alliance to End Homelessness, and they recently did the cost of homelessness. And I'll make this available and this website, these links available to anybody that needs them. I'll just quickly read, it's broken down for hospitalization and medical treatment for homelessness, prisons and jails for homelessness, the cost studies, and where they got that information from. But for many city officials, community leaders, even direct service providers, it often seems that placing homeless people in shelters is the most inexpensive way to meet basic needs of people experiencing homelessness. Some may even believe that shelters are an ideal solution. As you heard here tonight, it's not an ideal solution. It's a small Band-Aid for a big problem. It's a temporary fix to save lives, to get people the resources they need. If they're out on the bike path, there's 90% less chance that they're going to get those resources. If they're in one location, and the guy from the VA, Sean, who works with the homeless people in the VA, comes and spends 4 hours at the shelter interviewing vets, finding out what their programs are, he's more likely to use those programs than he is coming from the bike path. So, to answer your question, does the shelter increase? It stays the same. If a fight's going to break out between two guys on the bike path and they both show up at the shelter, there's a good chance that that fight's going to break out in the shelter. But it's our job to do the best that we can to not let that happen. And when that happens, to find a solution to the problem between us two people. I'm not saying it's going to happen in worst case scenario, but we have to protect the workers and the other people in the shelter, so law enforcement may need to be called. Like I said, we have to have a working relationship with the city municipalities. Our goal is to take the burden off the city. Our goal is to take the burden off of the store owners and the patrons and the store owners that are being panhandled. Our goal is for less people to be brought to the emergency room. Our goal is to get permanent housing for people. A shelter is a stepping stone. A shelter is a temporary solution for a few hours a day. I think it makes the cost flex. It goes up and down. It's really hard to pinpoint if the shelter adds or diminishes the cost. But if you look at the numbers, you'll see that it's got a potential to help.
Yeah, I see the right there, go back to the idea you mentioned about your goal is to find permanent housing. Where is the housing authority program to help you achieve that goal, and what sources of help with the homeless person's access when they are constantly being denied, their application being denied? What kind of ideas do you have about that?
Well, I think we've already answered that. Not sure, but I think we did. I think what we told you is there are other programs. The Housing Authority is but one run on the ladder. There's Riverwood, there's Housing First, there's all kinds of programs out there. And for those that have been denied housing, you have an appeal process that you can go through, and there are legal clinics and legal advocates that can be your voice through that process. If you're having an issue with that, call my office. I'll put you in touch with the people that can help you with that. If housing is not authority, if the town you're in is not working for you, we'll find another housing source that will. There are other sources, but one of the many resources available. It's not the only answer to the problem. It's one. Brother Jeff.
Can I ask Mike Ostenbach, House of Hope runs the Harrington Hall, but it's run under the guidelines of the state. The governor makes the decisions. And in the wintertime, extreme weather, they let the guys stay in. Is there any possibility that, like, between November and March, or November and February, that these guys have no place to go, and it's a hardship for them to have to leave there every day? Is that been brought up? Is that within the...
So, you're right, we get a state contract. So, we operate the shelter, the state owns the building.
kind of what Michelle was talking about as far as, so it will be like kind of a one-stop shop where you could get services during the day, but that's all based, on funding a lot. So right now, the rules are, we can only, have, I think, like 10 guys during the day, inside. On extreme weather days, like the hurricane that just passed, we stayed open. But right now, we don't have the funding to stay open during the day. That costs a lot of money.
Is there a program though, to have a volunteer, program that you could be staffed, partially by volunteers?
That's actually probably higher than my pay level, but I think it's a liability thing too.
Yeah.
And, I would love to be able to stay open during the day, because I think we can get a lot done, and a lot of the models are, we kind of have to bring services to the folks rather than have them go to, so say like a mental health appointment. It's a lot, like best practices, you bring those services out to the people. So I'm all for it, we are all for it, but we just don't have the resources.
I know you send them to Crossroads for some services, I don't know, bus passes or not sure everything. Where do you send them for food stamps? Where can you direct people?
Well, right now, so like as far as bus passes, we actually do have a program. We can approve people for disabled passes.
Not just disabled though? No, not.
We also have, so we have disabled, and then we also have a program, that there are some rules too. But you can get access to a monthly pass, a 15-red pass, or a weekly pass, depending on the situation. And your other question was food stamps. So we actually deal with Elmwood Avenue in Providence, and but we also have URI has a program, and they come out once a month, and we'll meet with anyone with any sort of issue.
But you are assisting these guys.
For sure. So I work there, I'm the manager, we also have some caseworkers who work there. And we also, try to collaborate with as many agencies as we can, to bring services in. Providence Center, Benton Center, a place called Fellowship, we just started a relationship with. They're all mental health agencies. We had a service fair last spring where a number of different agencies provide services, including food stamps, went there during the day, and we had guys walk around and stuff, and we'd love to do that again. But,
I know you're feeding them dinner at night. Is the state paying for that, or is that being provided by Providence Rescue Mission?
Providence Rescue.
Why isn't the state paying to feed those guys?
All I can tell, that's a good question.
Didn't Johnson and Wales just volunteer?
Before we took over, there was no food there at all. So,
Yeah, I was complimenting you that they are getting fed. They get fed very, very well.
Yeah. We have a couple of churches that come in a couple nights a week to bring extra food as well.
And clothing too, I know they bring in.
Mike, can I say something? I'm sorry, I stayed at Harrington Hall for 6 months, okay, and there's things that the guys can do. I ended up getting a job right shortly after I worked there, like a night party, but there's a library they can go to during a rainy day. They can, there's things for them to do. They just don't have to sit around. I mean, it's up to them. It's hard to get around, guaranteed. Because you need the birthday, so you have to go through that other stuff. But it's not that they're just going to, they sit around all day and, twiddle their thumbs. A lot of the guys work, over there.
I'd say less than 10%, maybe even less than 5% work.
There might be more than that.
I agree with him. Even the people on the bike path in West Warwick, almost half of them, as far as I can tell, have jobs and leave during the day to go to work.
Because I ended up, I also coach basketball, and I coach in Massachusetts, so, you know, I mean, and there's other people that do things, people just don't see it, you know, and yeah, there are people that stay around all day, and because they don't have the transportation, but, you know, people stay in their house all day too, you know, I mean, so it's like a 50-50 thing. And I'll stop talking, I'm sorry.
I hate to cut the Q&A part of this short, but a lot of people are getting a little restless, and I want to give Charlie Knoll, the executive director of the Audit Commission, an opportunity to present why the Audit Commission got involved in this.
6 years ago, I came to work at the Audit Commission. And the Audit Commission, by the way, has been in operation 11 years in this town. And it's done some pretty nice work. I came here 6 years ago, and one of the first things I did was met a homeless guy who had been beaten up. And we brought him down into the mission and cleaned him up and stuff, and then got into a detox center and things. And I got the idea from getting to know 3 guys in particular. My wife and I went off the bike path down into the encampment and came face to face with 3 guys who I lovingly referred to for many years as the 3 Musketeers. And one of the things I realized is that we needed to get a shelter in this town. And so I started some fundraising efforts to do exactly that. Now, coming from the business world, high-tech world, I had no idea what I was getting into. And I will say that I was called on the carpet and was asked to meet with the police chief and asked to meet with the town manager at the time. And both of them said, not in our town. As a CEO, I was used to challenging situations, so my response to them was, what will you not allow in your town? And they said, we will not allow an in-by-5 and out-by-7 shelter. So I said, okay, I understand all the reasons for that, because they were very articulate in outlining the reasons and the lack of resources. I said, what will you accept in this town? And they gave me a list. It looks something like this. It needs to be a permanent, well, not a permanent, but a 24/7 living facility. It needs to have a live-in director, and the people who live there need to have something to do. And it needs to be pretty much unknown to us. In other words, we don't want to get a call. We have that place in this town. And no one's ever gotten a call, and probably most of you don't even know that it exists. So what we did was did exactly what we were asked to do. However, since that time, all 3 of the 3 Musketeers have died. One of them died in a tragic fire. I loved every one of those guys like they were my own brothers. We have got to do something to make sure that that does not happen again. And we've got to do it now. So the Audit Commission is prepared to put our full resources into this. One of the things I will assure you of is that we will do it the same way that we did the transitional housing. We will ask for input from everybody available in this town. And we will make sure that what we put together is something that works for everyone. But make no mistake, something needs to be done. Now, if you know the mission, you also know that we believe there is no dignity in a hand out, and we believe that there is no shame in a hand up. Everything we do requires effort on behalf of the people that we help. In fact, there was a finance class going on just tonight that is a required class for the people for whom we provide heating assistance. For our toy drives, parents are required to earn points in order to come and shop in our stores with toys for their children. In the thrift mall, people are required to earn points in order to get clothing, blankets, whatever. And they're required to take classes or attend church services or quit smoking clinics or fundamentalist, wonderful, various clinics that they hold, healthy eating, whatever it is. And we're going to keep that same spirit. We're going to hold people accountable because this is a Band-Aid temporary solution. And there are permanent solutions available, and there are tremendous resources throughout the state, but it is a complex issue. And we've got to stop something. That is why when Ed came to me and said he had the experience that he had, and we had a lengthy discussion about where his heart is at, I found a man who loves people the way that we love people at the mission. I found a man who is driven by a higher power, as we are at the mission. And I found a man who has been through it all, and is completely empathetic to the plight of those who are suffering in our community. And that's why we've thrown the resources of the Arctic Mission behind this effort. And I assure you tonight, we will do everything that we can to help, and we will do it right. And we hope for your full cooperation. Thank you.
I'd like to take a straw poll of anybody that would be interested, whether you're homeless, whether you're a legislator or a councilman or work for a municipality or you're part of the Arctic Village Association or you're just somebody that cares. I need a straw poll for people that are willing to become part of the Pawtuxet Valley Homeless Advocacy Coalition. We're looking to form the membership tonight. Anybody?
Yeah.
Those of you that are interested, there's a sign-up sheet on the back desk that says Arctic Mission Volunteers, please. Please put your information down. And I guess the next thing to do is ask, when's the best time to have our first meeting of the Pawtuxet Valley Homeless Coalition, Advocacy Coalition, and elect the board. So those of you that are interested in becoming part of this, what's the best time? I picked Thursday night. It wasn't working for everyone. Monday night, mornings, weekends.
Get the list together first.
When you sign up on the sheet, put your available time for our first meeting, and Charlie and I will make an executive decision at the mission, and we'll just see who shows up to the meeting. All right, the coalition that is forming will fall under the umbrella and the governing body of the Arctic Mission. Until we're large enough and gain enough strength and financial stability to become our own nonprofit organization, we will be guided and directed by the Arctic Mission and its board of directors, but we will have our own board to make our own decisions, but we will accept the guidance of the Arctic Mission's board. And I hope that works for everyone. Yes, sir.
Just a suggestion, but location and time could be one of the times after one of the meals happens, either here or at other places, because a lot of the people who are concerned will already be there.
Okay, what we'll do is if you sign the sheet and you put the time that you would like to have a meeting on, we're going to go where the majority says it should be, and we'll make a decision and we'll notify everybody. There'll be notices put up at all the soup kitchens, all the businesses will be notified. If the emails are out, I'll shoot emails everywhere, across the country if need be. But I'd like to have a meeting within the next 10 days because we vision a shelter before Christmas, and we need to move quickly, swiftly, and justly. All in due time, my friend, all in due time. Let's not put the cart before the horse. We have to get a shelter. We have to get a coalition. These things have to happen first. Because believe me, if it was just me and my decisions, I'd be renting a building somewhere with my little income, living in it and running it. It doesn't work that way. So we have to make sure it works for everybody. I'm going to close the meeting. Oops.
Can I say,
Andy from Rogers King.
I've been chomping at the bit all night. There's so many great things going on. Like I say, a lot of people know what's going on around town. And I think I'm kind of involved at like 3 different spots. I'm a businessman in Arctic. We run the soup kitchen on Tuesday nights. And like everybody here, we're all taxpayers. And, the difference between homeless and bums, I mean, that's a big difference. I mean, at our soup kitchen on Tuesday nights, for instance, I mean, I'm not calling anybody a bum, but I mean, we've got a few people that are problematic, but I mean, the other 60 people are just people that a lot of you are here. I mean, I recognize a lot of faces out here. But I mean, they're just people that are a paycheck or two away from being on the street. I mean, like Charlie says, they're couch hoppers and trying to find places to stay. But I mean, we need to be brutally honest. I mean, we all tend to generalize. I mean, we all see the welfare fraud, the food stamp fraud. We all know, you know, it happens, okay? So we all need, whoever's involved needs to take responsibility about those. And these are all like, anything that anybody can do. Ed doesn't have all the answers. Charlie doesn't have all the answers. I definitely don't have the answers. But I mean, the thing is, everybody needs to take responsibility. As human beings on this earth, we need to help each other. That's what we're supposed to do. The thing is, we all need to take responsibility. I've got, you know, I run the store down the street. I've got apartments available. But you all, some of you know, some of you might have lived there before. You see the struggles. You see me on Tuesday night. You see some of my tenants here. And you see some of the issues that we deal with. I've got 5 empty apartments. I'm more than happy to have people come and talk. But the problem is, again, you know, people get upset because you rent to somebody homeless, and then it's 6 more people move in, and it's drinking and drugging. So as a landlord and a businessman, you know, I see that issue. As a human being and a Christian, we want to be there to help people. And I don't think anybody can argue the fact that I'm here to do both. But, I mean, what he's trying to do is trying to help everybody. We all need to take responsibility, whether it's politics or being a homeless person themselves. That's what needs to start with them, okay? And there's so many people out there wanting to do it. We've got all kinds of volunteers and people offering all kinds of help. But it works both ways, you know. I think you talk to any landlord in Arctic or in West Warwick, and they'll give you horror story after horror story. You know, the manor, we had that meeting a few weeks ago about the manor and all the problems there in the bike path. But, you know, these things can be taken care of if we all take responsibility. You know, I don't think, you know, like I say, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but we all need to own up to this. I mean, I'm guilty, and we're all guilty of generalizing, you know, oh, welfare is a fraud, food stamps is a fraud, this guy is just using the system. You know, there's a lot of people, I have a lot of people and friends that are, like Ed said, a paycheck away from being on the street themselves. So, I think we just need to get together and make it work. This is not going to solve the problem, but it's a step in the right direction, and it's something we need to do, because we don't have that right now. We don't have it. You know, we complain, whether it's the business association, whether it's the taxpayer wasting all their money. I mean, we can complain all we want. The problem's not going to go away. We need to do something. So, I applaud these guys for trying to do what they're doing, and I'm definitely involved. Okay, so thank you. Thank you.
You know, I belong to another fellowship, and I'm just going to have to say this. Is there anybody that has a burning desire, before I close this meeting up, to bring a point out or ask a question? If it's just a little.
Yeah, Thursday, April 5th, 2012. Was like the worst day of my life. When I had to put my best friend out the fire. I was homeless on that pretty bike path. Super death. And Charlie, these guys done, the other thing has done so much for me.
Mike, I've known you a long time,
Right.
and I know the pain you're in. We talked about it extensively, and, you know,
And as far as gangs,
I've sat in crack houses on the side of a dining room. I feel your pain,
yeah,
and that's why I'm here for you.
I know it.
And let me do my job to help you.
But next time you're down the bike path with glass on, because there's one of the people on that.
Listen, I thought there was only 20, and then I went again, and there was more.
Six bike path road.
One last question, and we're going to close this up.
There's one thing that strikes me. It's a lot of people get income. They have an income. And I know Social Security is supposed to, if they have a drug or alcohol problem, they're supposed to have them have a representative payee. A lot of,
I believe it's only with mental health issues that you're supposed to have a payee.
it should, unfortunately, well, that's something that I want to look into, because I know that when people have a payee, they get their life back on track. It's
Absolutely.
easier.
and through the shelter, at the Emmanuel House, we were able to get people hooked up with people they trusted, or legal people that would become payees for them, whether it be through counseling services.
But if it's voluntary, they're not gonna do it.
This guy can't get the guy on the side of him to be his payee, it's not gonna work, because they're both gonna go spend the money together.
Right.
So I'd like to take the opportunity, to close this meeting up, and, a guy I've gotten very close with, one of the guys that I consider, one of my many mentors in life, and I've learned a lot from getting to know him, and he's a business owner here in town, and he's also my landlord. Dennis, come on up and close us with a prayer.
All right.
Let me have all your attention. I know we're closing and we all want to get out of here and I'm hot. But, he asked me to pray tonight and I'm like, oh. So what I did was, I went into scripture and I said, God, what do you say about all this? And I found something very intriguing over here. It's an exhortation from the Lord to His people, and it's found in Isaiah 58, verse 7 to the end of the chapter. And in this, he's talking about true and false worship, and this is the actual voice of the Lord speaking through His scripture. And what I found very intriguing is that I'm into economic development, and in this scripture, He gives a promise of economic development. He also gives a promise of people that help other people. And so with this, it's like a win-win situation. If we're all helping everybody out, there's a tremendous benefit. So when you hear these words, know they're from God, our Creator, straight to us. Okay, listen to this. You humble yourselves by going through the motives of penance, bowing your heads, you dress in burlap and cover your heads with ashes. Now you got to understand this is back in the Old Testament. Is this what you call fasting? Do you really think this will please the Lord? No. This is the kind of fasting I want. Free those who are wrongly imprisoned. Lighten the burden of those who work for you. Let the oppressed go free and remove the chains that bind people. Share your food with the hungry and give shelter to the homeless. Give clothes to those who need them, and do not hide from and do not hide from relatives who need your help. That's for somebody in here. Then your salvation will come like the dawn, and your wound will quickly heal. We have a wounded society. Your godliness will lead you forward, and the glory of the Lord will protect you from behind. Then when you call the Lord, He will answer, yes, I am here. He will quickly reply. Remove the heavy yoke of oppression. Stop pointing your finger and spreading vicious rumors. Feed the hungry and help those in trouble. Then your light will shine out from the darkness, and the darkness around you will be bright as noon. Wow, that's a promise. then your darkness around you will be bright as noon. The Lord will guide you continually, giving you water when you are dry, and restoring